Are you feeling exhausted and unmotivated? In this video, we'll explore the 5 signs of burnout and how Buddhism can help you overcome it. Lesson 1. You feel like you're not connected to anything. In Buddhism, the concept of interconnectedness is fundamental. We are all connected to each other and to the world around us. This interconnectedness is known as dependent origination, which means that everything in the universe is connected and nothing exists independently. When we're burnt out, we may feel disconnected and isolated. We may feel like we're going through the motions of life without really being present. This is a sign that we need to reconnect with ourselves and with the world. One way to reconnect is through mindfulness meditation, a key practice in Buddhism. Mindfulness meditation involves focusing on the present moment, usually by paying attention to the breath. By doing so, we can become more aware of our thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations. We can begin to see how everything is interconnected and how our actions affect ourselves and others. For example, imagine that you're feeling burnt out and disconnected from your work. You may feel like your work has no purpose or meaning. However, by practicing mindfulness, you can begin to see how your work is connected to the larger world. You may realize that your work helps support your family, or that it contributes to a larger project or goal. You may also become more aware of how your work affects others, such as your colleagues or customers. By seeing these connections, you can begin to feel more connected and engaged with your work. Another way to reconnect is through compassion and empathy. In Buddhism, compassion is seen as a natural response to suffering. When we see others suffering, we feel compassion and want to help. However, when we're burnt out, we may feel numb or indifferent to the suffering of others. We may feel like we have nothing to give. By practicing compassion and empathy, we can begin to reconnect with others and with the world. For example, imagine that you're feeling burnt out and disconnected from your community. You may feel like you have nothing in common with your neighbors or that you don't belong. By practicing compassion and empathy, you can begin to see how you are connected to your community. You may volunteer at a local food bank or offer to help a neighbor with their groceries. By doing so, you can begin to feel more connected and engaged with your community. Reconnecting with nature can also help us feel more connected and grounded. In Buddhism, nature is seen as a reflection of the interconnectedness of all things. By spending time in nature, we can begin to see how everything is connected and how we are a part of the natural world. For example, imagine that you're feeling burnt out and disconnected from your environment. You may feel like you're stuck in a concrete jungle with no access to nature. However, by taking a walk in a nearby park or spending time in your backyard, you can begin to reconnect with nature. You may notice the sound of birds singing or the feeling of the sun on your skin. By doing so, you can begin to feel more connected and grounded. Feeling disconnected and isolated is a common sign of burnout. However, by practicing mindfulness, compassion, empathy, and reconnecting with nature, we can begin to reconnect with ourselves and with the world. We can see how everything is interconnected and how our actions affect ourselves and others. By doing so, we can find a sense of purpose and meaning in our lives, even when we're feeling burnt out. Focus on your breath and become aware of your thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations. Look for opportunities to practice compassion and empathy, whether it's volunteering in your community or simply offering a kind word to a stranger. Lesson 2. You don't feel motivated anymore. Motivation is a powerful force that drives us to achieve our goals and live fulfilling lives. When we're burnt out, we may lose sight of this motivation. We may feel like we're stuck in a rut, unable to make progress or find meaning in our work or personal lives. This lack of motivation can be a sign of burnout, and it's important to address it before it leads to further distress. Motivation is closely tied to our intentions and values. When we set intentions that align with our values, we create a sense of purpose that can motivate us to take action. When we lose sight of these intentions, we may feel aimless and unmotivated. Therefore, to overcome a lack of motivation, It's important to reconnect with our values and set intentions that align with them. Another way to reconnect with our motivation is to focus on the present moment. In Buddhism, the present moment is seen as the only moment that truly exists. When we focus on the present moment, we can let go of regrets about the past and worries about the future, both of which can drain our motivation. Instead, we can focus on the task at hand and find joy and fulfillment in the process. For example, let's say you're working on a project that feels overwhelming. Instead of focusing on the end result and feeling daunted by the task ahead, try breaking it down into smaller steps and focusing on one step at a time. As you work on each step, try to find enjoyment in the process. Notice the sensations in your body as you work, the sounds around you, and the progress you're making. By focusing on the present moment, you can find motivation in the process itself rather than just the end result. It's also important to remember that motivation is not a constant state. Like all emotions, it comes and goes. There will be times when we feel highly motivated and times when we don't. This is normal, and it's important to be compassionate with ourselves when we're feeling unmotivated. Instead of beating ourselves up for not feeling motivated, we can try to understand why we're feeling this way and what we can do to reconnect with our motivation. One way to do this is to practice self-compassion. Self-compassion involves treating ourselves with kindness and understanding, rather than criticism and judgment. When we're feeling unmotivated, we can try to speak to ourselves like we would speak to a dear friend. We can acknowledge that we're feeling unmotivated and offer ourselves words of encouragement and support. We can also try to identify any negative self-talk that may be contributing to our lack of motivation and work to reframe these thoughts in a more positive and compassionate way. For example, let's say you're feeling unmotivated to exercise. Instead of telling yourself that you're lazy and unfit, try to speak to yourself with kindness and understanding. You might say something like, "I know it's hard to get started, but I also know that exercise makes me feel good. I'll start with just 5 minutes and see how I feel. I'm proud of myself for making an effort." By practicing self-compassion, we can create a more positive and supportive inner dialogue that can help us reconnect with our motivation. By practicing reflection, focusing on the present moment, practicing self-compassion, and balancing our external goals with our inner needs, we can rediscover our motivation and find fulfillment in our lives. Lesson 3. You lost your passion. Passion is the fuel that drives us towards our goals and dreams. It's the spark that ignites our creativity and the force that propels us forward. However, when we're burnt out, we may lose this passion. We may feel indifferent or apathetic about things that once excited us. This can be a challenging and confusing experience, but it's important to remember that losing your passion doesn't mean it's gone forever. It's often a sign that we need to take a step back, reflect, and reconnect with ourselves. Buddhism teaches us that passion comes from within. It's not something that we can find outside of ourselves. It's a quality of our mind and heart that we can cultivate and nurture. When we're burnt out, we may feel disconnected from this inner passion. We may feel like we've lost touch with who we are and what we love. Buddhism offers several practices that can help us rediscover our passion. Mindfulness is the practice of being present and fully engaged with our experience, without judgment. When we're mindful, we're able to observe our thoughts and feelings without getting caught up in them. This can help us gain a clearer perspective on our lives and reconnect with our inner passion. For example, imagine that you're a painter who has lost your passion for painting. You may feel like you're in a creative rut and that your work lacks meaning. However, by practicing mindfulness, you can begin to observe your thoughts and feelings about painting without judgment. You may realize that you're putting too much pressure on yourself to create something perfect, or that you're comparing yourself to other artists. By becoming aware of these thoughts and feelings, you can begin to let them go and reconnect with the joy of painting. Gratitude is the practice of appreciating the good things in our lives. When we're burnt out, we may focus on what's wrong or missing in our lives, rather than what's right. However, by cultivating gratitude, we can shift our perspective and reconnect with our passion. For example, imagine that you're a musician who has lost your passion for music. You may feel like you're stuck in a rut and that your music lacks meaning. However, by cultivating gratitude, you can begin to appreciate the gift of music in your life. You may realize that you're grateful for the opportunity to express yourself through music, or for the joy that music brings to others. By focusing on what you're grateful for, you can rekindle your passion for music. Self-compassion is the practice of treating ourselves with kindness and understanding, especially when we're struggling. When we're burnt out, we may be hard on ourselves and feel like we're not doing enough. However, by practicing self-compassion, we can nurture our inner passion. For example, imagine that you're a writer who has lost your passion for writing. You may feel like you're not good enough, or that your writing lacks purpose. However, by practicing self-compassion, you can begin to treat yourself with kindness and understanding. You may realize that it's okay to take a break, to write for yourself, or to explore new topics. By being kind to yourself, you can create a safe space for your passion to flourish. Sometimes, losing our passion can be a sign that we need to explore new interests or try new things. When we're burnt out, we may feel stuck in a routine or a rut. However, by exploring new interests, we can reignite our passion and discover new aspects of ourselves. For example, imagine that you're a dancer who has lost your passion for dance. You may feel like you're not progressing or that your dance lacks meaning. However, by exploring new interests, you can rediscover your passion. You may try a new style of dance, take a cooking class, or learn a new language. By trying new things, you can stimulate your curiosity and creativity, which can help you reconnect with your passion. Connecting with others can help us rediscover our passion. When we're burnt out, we may feel isolated and disconnected from others. However, by connecting with others who share our interests and values, we can gain inspiration and support. For example, imagine that you're a photographer who has lost your passion for photography. You may feel like you're not inspired, or that your work lacks meaning. However, by connecting with other photographers, you can gain new perspectives and ideas. You may join a photography club, attend a workshop, or collaborate with other artists. By connecting with others, you can create a sense of community and purpose, which can help you rediscover your passion. Losing our passion is a common experience, but it's not permanent. By applying the teachings of Buddhism, we can reconnect with our inner passion and find meaning and joy in our lives. Remember, passion comes from within, and it's something that we can cultivate and nurture. Lesson 4. You're feeling moody and easily annoyed. When we're burnt out, our emotional resilience can wear thin, making us more susceptible to mood swings and irritability. We may find ourselves snapping at loved ones, feeling frustrated over minor inconveniences, or simply feeling overwhelmed by our emotions. This is a common sign of burnout, and it's important to address it in a compassionate and constructive way. Impermanence refers to the transient nature of all things, including our emotions. Our feelings are not permanent fixtures. They arise, they linger for a while, and then they pass. When we're feeling moody or irritable, it can be easy to forget this. We may feel like our negative emotions will last forever, or that they define who we are. But this is not the case. By recognizing the impermanence of our emotions, we can begin to let go of our attachment to them. This doesn't mean that we ignore our feelings or pretend that they don't exist. Rather, it means that we acknowledge them, accept them, and then allow them to pass, like clouds moving across the sky. For example, imagine that you're feeling irritable after a long day at work. Instead of lashing out at your family or dwelling on your negative feelings, you could say to yourself, "I am feeling irritable right now, but this feeling will pass. It does not define me." By doing so, you can create a sense of emotional distance, allowing you to respond to your feelings in a more mindful and constructive way. Another key teaching in Buddhism is mindfulness, which involves paying attention to the present moment in a non-judgmental way. When we're feeling moody or irritable, mindfulness can help us become more aware of our emotions and how they affect us. For example, imagine that you're feeling annoyed because you're stuck in traffic. Instead of letting your frustration build, you could practice mindfulness by focusing on your breath and observing your emotions. You might notice that your heart is racing, your muscles are tense, or your thoughts are racing. By becoming more aware of these physical and mental sensations, you can gain a better understanding of your emotions and how they affect you. Mindfulness can help us respond to our emotions in a more constructive way. Instead of reacting impulsively, we can choose to respond in a way that aligns with our values and goals. For example, if you're feeling irritable and you notice that you're about to snap at a loved one, you could take a deep breath, acknowledge your feelings, and choose to respond in a more compassionate way. Buddhism emphasizes the importance of compassion, both towards ourselves and others. When we're feeling moody or irritable, it can be easy to beat ourselves up or lash out at others. But this only perpetuates a cycle of negativity and suffering. We can choose to respond with compassion. This means treating ourselves with kindness and understanding, even when we're feeling emotional or overwhelmed. It also means extending this kindness to others, even when they frustrate or annoy us. For example, imagine that you're feeling irritable and you snap at a coworker. Instead of dwelling on your mistake or berating yourself, you could practice self-compassion by acknowledging your feelings, forgiving yourself, and learning from the experience. You could also extend compassion to your coworker by apologizing for your behavior and offering to make amends. Compassion can help us break the cycle of negativity and cultivate a more positive and constructive mindset. It can also help us build stronger and more meaningful relationships with others, which can provide a valuable source of support and connection during times of burnout. Feeling moody and easily annoyed is a common sign of burnout, but it's not a sign of weakness or laziness. By applying the teachings of Buddhism, we can learn to manage our emotions, cultivate mindfulness and compassion, and find inner peace, even in the midst of burnout. Lesson 5. You're not taking care of yourself properly. Self-care is a fundamental aspect of Buddhist teachings. It is the practice of taking care of oneself in a way that promotes physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. When we're burnt out, we may neglect our self-care practices, which can exacerbate our symptoms and make it harder for us to recover. In this lesson, we will explore the importance of self-care in overcoming burnout and discuss some practical ways to incorporate self-care into our daily lives. For example, when we don't get enough sleep, we may feel irritable, anxious, or depressed. When we don't eat well, we may feel sluggish, lethargic, or unmotivated. By taking care of our physical health, we can improve our mental health and overall well-being. Self-care is also a form of self-compassion. Self-compassion is the practice of treating ourselves with kindness, understanding, and care. When we're burnt out, we may be critical of ourselves, pushing ourselves to do more, even when we're exhausted. Self-care allows us to take a step back, acknowledge our limits, and give ourselves permission to rest and recharge. It's about recognizing that we are worthy of care and attention, just like anyone else. Mindfulness involves paying attention to our thoughts, feelings, and sensations without judgment. It's about accepting ourselves and our experiences as they are, without trying to change or fix anything. When we practice mindfulness, we can cultivate a sense of inner peace and calm, even in the midst of chaos. Self-care is a vital aspect of overcoming burnout. By taking care of our physical, emotional, and spiritual needs, we can restore our energy and resilience. Self-care is not selfish, it's essential for our well-being. By applying the teachings of Buddhism, we can learn to recognize the signs of burnout and take steps to overcome it. We can reconnect with ourselves and the world, rediscover our purpose, nurture our passion, manage our emotions, and practice self-care. Remember, it's okay to take a break, to rest, and to prioritize your well-being. You are not lazy, you are human. And as humans, we all need a little compassion, understanding, and care.